Good day everyone, my name is Moya and I'll be taking you the IELTS. But in today's class, we'll be looking at the overview of the IELTS test, what it's all about, and the skills being tested. We'll be back shortly. Okay, welcome back. And like I said, we are looking at the overview of the IELTS test. So let's head to the board and see the skills being tested. The IELTS test often tests the 4 language skills, which are listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And most of the time, or let me say virtually every day of our life, we make use of at least 3 of these skills. We listen, we read, and we write. And I bet we do speak every day. So now let's start. The listening, the reading, and the writing. These are the written aspects of the IELTS test. The speaking is an interview. So it's separate from listening, reading, and writing. So we are going to look at the written aspect first, then we'll come down to the speaking. Are you with me? Okay, now the listening is often the first paper, and the listening is for 40 minutes. And it's comprised of 4 sections divided into 10. That simply means the first part is question 1 to 10. The second part is question 11 to 20. The third part, question 21 to 30. And the last part, 31 to 40. And this takes place for 40 minutes. Actually, the actual listening is 30 minutes, whereby you have 30 minutes to listen to the audio and answer questions. Then you're given 10 minutes to go through your answer if you're writing the computer-based test, and 10 minutes to transfer your answer from the question paper to the answer booklet if you are writing the paper-based test. I hope that is clear. So after the listening, we have the reading. Now the reading is for 60 minutes, also known as 1 hour, and we have 3 sections. And each section we are expected to answer in 20 minutes. So 20 multiplied by 3 gives us 60 minutes. So that is for the reading. So once the reading is over, you're immediately given the writing question. And the writing is also for 60 minutes. And we have 2 tasks under the writing. The first task is for 20 minutes. And the second task is for 40 minutes. And after that, we are through with the written aspects of the IELTS test. Then we now move on to the speaking. Like I said earlier, the speaking is an interview. And being an interview, that means we are not really doing much of writing. We are just having a conversation with the examiner. So the speaking is expected to be up for 14 minutes. You can spend less than 14 minutes, but the maximum time is 14 minutes. And it has 3 parts. The first part is what we call background information, where the examiner gets to meet you. The second part is a form of verbal composition, whereby you are being asked to talk about a topic. Then the third part is often an opinion, a conversation that borders on your opinion. So that is a general overview of the IELTS test. And I hope you remember I said the listening, reading, and the writing, they are the written aspect of the IELTS test, while the speaking is an interview. I hope that is clear. So shortly, we'll go on a short break, then we'll now look at the listening in details. Okay, welcome back. So like I said, we are going to be looking at the listening test in detail. So, like I mentioned earlier, the listening test has 4 sections.
Hi, I know you are enjoying this video and would like to see related materials and content. We have loads and loads for you in stock. Make sure you like this channel, subscribe, hit the subscription button right now, and share with your friends and colleagues so that when next we release the next video, YouTube will notify you. Now let's get back to the class.
So the first section, which is for question 1 to 10, comprised of a conversation in everyday social context between 2 individuals. Most of the time it is often called social situation. Now, an example of this social context could be a conversation between 2 neighbors. A neighbor just moved into the neighborhood and is asking the other neighbor where to get general supplies. So that's an example. Another example could be somebody calling a train station in order to make a complaint about a lost luggage. So that is another example. So like I just said, or like I've mentioned earlier, it is a conversation about something going on around us between 2 people. So being a conversation, we are often required to listen to that conversation and answer questions on that conversation. So that simply means we could be acting like a secretary that is taking down the details of a meeting. So that's the mind frame to have when we are answering section 1 of the listening test. I believe that should be clear. So now let's move on to section 2. Now section 2 comprises of a monologue. When we say monologue, that means we have one person having the conversation or doing the talking. Now this monologue most of the time would relate to social topic or social needs. Example, a public lecture on the use of the internet for children. Another example could be a public lecture on how to keep our house safe. Or another could be a description of a building or a tourist site. So, but like I've mentioned, this section 2 is often a monologue. Though at the beginning we could have 2 individuals talking, but the main speaker will be just one person. So now let's move on to section 3. Now section 3, most of the time we tag that campus setting, and sometimes we tag it vocation setting. Now it is campus when the conversation is happening within the academic context, especially a tertiary institution. So the conversation is going on between students and their lecturers, or between students amongst themselves. So when we have that happening, it is campus setting. But sometimes we have employee and employer, especially when we have new sets of employees within the organization. So the employer or the manager is giving them an orientation. So when we have that happening, that is vocation setting. So under the section 3, instead of having just a person or 2 people talking, we could have 2 or more individuals having the conversation. So we need to listen carefully to know what each person has said. Now the last part is section 4. Now when we talk about section 4, it's usually a lecture or a presentation. Now it's a lecture where you have a lecturer giving lecture in the class, or is a presentation where you have a student giving a presentation, or you have a salesperson giving a presentation. And one thing you should know is that it is often carried out by one individual. And also being a lecture, that simply means it is drawn from any field of human endeavor. Could be from science, could be from medicine, could be from technology, could be from history, could be from archaeology. So that is all about the listening test. Like I've mentioned, we have 4 sections, section 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're expected to listen and answer in 30 minutes. And we're given 10 minutes to review our answers. So now let's head over to the reading tests.
If you are preparing for an exam, this channel is for you. We have loads of content for you, which we'll be releasing in coming days and weeks. Make sure you like this channel and subscribe to this channel, so that as soon as we are releasing those videos, you'll be notified by YouTube and you can have success all in one sitting.
Okay, so now we are looking at IELTS General Training Reading Test. IELTS General Training Reading Test. And on the reading test, we have 3 sections. The first section is for 20 minutes, and we are expected to answer 13 or 14 questions. And in the first section, we are often given 2 passages. The first passage is for a set of questions, then the other passage is for the other set of questions. That's for section 1. Now moving on, section 2, we have question 14 to 26, or sometimes questions 15 to 27. And we are also expected to answer this in 20 minutes. And we also have 2 passages, just like section 1. Now the last section, that's section 3, we have 1 long passage, extremely long passage, longer than the passages we experienced in section 1 and 2. And this passage, most of the time, would have 3 different sets of questions underneath. And is usually the last part, like we've said. That means we are answering the last set of questions, or the last set of the number of questions. So that will be 28 down to 40. And like I've said, we are also answering this in 20 minutes. So section 1, 20 minutes, section 2, 20 minutes, section 3, 20 minutes. So that makes 60 minutes. I hope that is clear. So, welcome back. Now we are looking at writing, general training writing, IELTS general training writing. Like I mentioned in the overview, we have 2 tasks. The first task is letter writing. We are being asked to write a letter in 20 minutes of minimum of 150 words. That simply means our letter could go above 150, but our letter should not go below 150. That's very important, because if your letter is less than 150, then you have marks being deducted from your overall score. So now, like I said, we have to write a letter, and we have 3 major types of letter. We have the informal letter, we have the formal letter, and we have the semi-formal letter. So depending on the question we are being given, we get to decide whether we are writing a formal letter, semi-formal, or informal letter. I hope that is clear. And one thing I want you to know is that under the IELTS test, we don't write address. So there is no need of address. So we just start with the salutation. Dear Sir or Madam for formal letter. Dear Mr. Smith for semi-formal letter. Dear Shola for informal letter. I hope that is clear. Okay. So like I was saying, the next is task 2, and the task 2 writing. We are often required to write an essay, and we're writing an essay in response to a topic that has been presented in the question. So yes, it has been presented in the question, and this particular essay is expected to be written in about 250 words or more. So that simply means our essay should not go below 250 words, but it can go above. Now we have 6 different kinds of essay that we write under the IELTS test. We have what we call the opinion essay. We have what we call the problem solution essay. We have what we call advantages, disadvantages essay. We have double question essay. We have cause and effect essay, and the last would be discussion essay.
Hello, if you are enjoying this video and want to see more content relating to this towards your examination success, make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends, okay? Because we'll be releasing loads and loads of beautiful content tailored towards your examination success in one sit. Now let's get back to the class.
So these are the 6 different kinds of essay that we have under the IELTS test. So we could be asked questions on any of these essay, and that is why we should try to know how to write all of these kind of essay. I hope that is clear. So like I've said earlier, I said the first task we're writing a letter under general training. The second task we're writing an essay. So that is for the IELTS writing. Now the last one is the speaking. So we are moving on to the speaking test. Yes. So now we have the speaking test. Like I mentioned earlier, the speaking is an interview. So it is conducted separately from the listening, the reading, and the writing. That simply means we could have the speaking interview before listening, reading, and writing. Or we could have it after listening, reading, and writing. That would all depend on the time slot you are being given at the point of registration. So now, moving on, the speaking is expected to be conducted within 10 minutes and at most 14 minutes, and it's comprised of 3 parts. Now the first part is where you are being asked questions about yourself, your home or your family, your job, what you do, or your studies if you are a student, your interests, and some series of familiar topics. And sometimes you are being asked questions about what you have done when you were a child. That means questions relating to your past or something around you. For example, you are being asked your preference, whether you like taking bottled water. Or sometimes you are asked questions about your hobby, maybe cooking or baking. So just question about yourself. That's what we answer majorly under part 1 of the speaking test. Now we move on to part 2. Now part 2 is a form of verbal composition, or what we could say a monologue, whereby the examiner asks you a question. You are often given a card, which is called a cue card. And if it's going to be a virtual interview, the question is being displayed on the screen. Because sometimes you could have a physical interview or a virtual interview, so you will know. Now, irrespective of whether you're being given a physical card or the question is being displayed on the screen, this particular question or card would have a question that's more or less like a general topic. For example, describe your favorite teacher. And you will have some little question or some sub-question under that general question, about 4 in number. And based on that, you have to use those questions as a form of guide to help you with your response. So your response should be for 2 minutes. That means you answer the question in 2 minutes. Though you'll be given 1 minute or 30 seconds to prepare your answer, but you're expected to answer in 2 minutes. So that means your answer should not go less than 2 minutes. So have that in mind. Now after the part 2, you have the last part, which is the part 3. Now the part 3 is like an extension of the part 2 because you are being asked further questions on the same topic. So for example, maybe you spoke about goal setting in part 2. Now in part 3, you'll be asked further questions related to goal setting. but this question will be majorly about your opinion or your preferences. So that is for the speaking. And after that, test is over. So that is all about the IELTS test. Like we've mentioned, it's an overview. We are just looking at what the test is all about. And we have seen what the test is all about. Okay, welcome back. So now we are looking at the listening test and the common question type under the listening test. There are some questions that are common to the listening test, or let me say with the listening test. And once you're familiar with the question, you can easily answer them. So now the first one we'll be looking at is the multiple choice. The multiple choice is also known as OBJ in our local palace. Now, the multiple choice is actually choosing between different alternatives. Choosing between different alternatives. And like we know, any multiple choice question, there is always the right answer and there is always the synonym or the look-alike of the right answer. So we need to look at the options carefully and see that we choose the right answer. So now we have an example here. Here is an example, and the question is, what did the students see on their walk in the mountains? We have the first option, a group of unusual animals. The second one, some rare plants. And the third is an interesting geographical feature. Now here is the transcript or an extract of that conversation. So we have tutor. How did you enjoy the free trip to Scotland? Then here's the student's response. Well, we had some fantastic walks. One day, we walked along the amazing deserted beach. We must have walked for about 15 miles, and we saw a seal which was basking in the sunshine. It was all there by itself. Then the tutor said, how lucky. There are such beautiful animals, and it's quite unusual to see them there. Now the student's response, that's right. Another day we climbed the mountain behind the hut we were staying. We were hoping to find some rare things that were supposed to grow there and nowhere else in Scotland. We did just about giving up hope when we found some at the bottom of a rocky slope. They have a number of very interesting features. For example, and the conversation is off. Now, let's go back to the question. Now we have, what did the students see on their walk in the mountains? You can see that the question is quite specific. It is the mountains, not what they actually saw in Scotland, but actually the mountains. So all of this was mentioned in the first part. We have unusual animals being mentioned in this first part of the conversation. But the real answer is in the other part of the conversation, which is some rare plants. And that is the actual answer. You know, I mentioned earlier, we have the real answer, then we have the look-alike answer. So, option A is the look-alike answer, while the actual answer is option B. So when we are reading through multiple choice, we need to pay extra attention. Now, still on the multiple choice, there is another kind of multiple choice. The answers are beyond the normal multiple choice. The normal multiple choice is A, B to C or A, B to D. But this one would have A, B to E or A, B to G as the case may be. Now, what this simply means is that you have one question serving two question number. One question serving two question number. For example, question 13 and 14. And that simply means you are expected to choose two options. When you have A to E, you're expected to choose two options. While we have some candidates complain, they would say, I saw only one question, I can't find the other question. So this is where you need to pay attention. Where you have multiple choice down to E, you're expected to choose two options, and those two options are serving two question number. Here is an example. So we have, which two sections of our work does the student need to improve? Which two sections of our work does the student need to improve? We can see that we have just one question, but we are required to pick two answers because we have our option down to letter E, from A, B, C, D, E. Now let's read the extract of that conversation. Now this is it. The student is going first. We have, how was my lab report this time? Do you think it was better than my last one? Now the tutor's response. Yes, it was much improved, particularly the clear way in which you described the procedure. I also felt you laid out the aims very clearly, which gave a good impression from the start. You could think a bit more in future about the conclusion section though. They felt a bit hurried to me, even though you did actually make a first-class job of writing up the results. Now, the student, what about the way I presented the figures? Was that okay? The tutor now, yes, I liked it. But don't forget that you need to label them all, and then you can refer to them more easily when you are describing them in your text. So now, the tutor has mentioned a conclusion, then the tutor has mentioned that she should label the figures. So let's go back to our option. So we have, which two sections of our work does the student need to improve? So the first answer is conclusion. The second answer is figures. So let's assume that is for question 13 and 14. So we just simply write A, option A, in front of question number 13, then option B in front of question number 14. So that is how we answer this kind of multiple choice. I hope that is clear. So now let's move on to the next question type. Now the next question type we'll be looking at under the listening test would be matching. Some people call it matching features. Now this exercise is just like, let me say, it's similar to this kindergarten exercise where we are to match capital letter A with small letter A, if you remember that. So that is the logic behind this question type. Now what they want us to do is that we are often given a list of options. Then the question is being asked and we are to now match the option with the question. So here's an example. We have, what does Jenny say about each type of job? So now here is a collection of the opinion Jenny has about the different types of job that was mentioned in the audio. So the first one, we have A good opportunity to gain useful experience. B, hours tend to be inconvenient. C, jobs available for people with specific skills. D, pay is surprisingly good. And E, plenty of work at the moment. Then F is, work is popular with students. Now here is the question. We have jobs. So we have the first one, hotel work. The second one, telephone sales. Now these are the job, but this is Jenny's opinion versus the job. So now in the audio, all of these have been spoken about in the audio. So now they want us to match what she has said about hotel job and what she has said about telephone sales. So according to the audio, what she has said, okay, let's read out the transcript so that we can have a better understanding. Now here's the transcript. We have, there are plenty of opportunities for temporary work in hotels available at the moment. It's quite hard work, but you don't need any special skills. You can actually earn a lot more than you might imagine, and it's often possible to choose the hours that are most convenient for you. You might also be interested in doing something in telesales. It doesn't matter if you haven't got any previous experience of this. It's work which local undergraduates often choose to do. The hours tend to fit in well with lectures and other university commitments. Now you can see we have telesales, then we have hotels being mentioned. So let's go back to the list of opinion. Now we have option D. Pay is surprisingly good. That is related to hotel work because she mentioned that said you can earn more than you imagine. Then we have telephone sales. Work is popular with students. She mentioned that as well. So you can see F and D are the answer to question 2 and 1. So they just want us to match the work with the opinion. So that's what we do under matching. We expected to match one part with the other part. And that was why I said it's similar to the kindergarten work of matching capital letter A with small letter A. I hope that is clear. So now let's move on quickly and look at the next question type under the listening test. So we are back to this. Now, another common question type is map labeling. We are often given a map or the plan of a place and we are expected to label the map. Now, this question is common under section 1, the last part, let's say question 6 to 10, and is most common under section 2, the last part as well, let's say 16 to 20. So these are the common question type under listening. Now, here's an example, and the task is to label a shopping mall, which is the Waterside Shopping Mall.
Hi, if you have not subscribed to this channel, you can do so in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And don't forget to hit the notification button.
So let's look at the map in details. Okay, I think it's okay here. Yes. So now here is the plan of the shopping mall, and as you can see, we have the northern side, we have the western side, we have the eastern side, and we have the southern side. Now, some people will say, I did not do geography, I don't know how to label map. It's very easy. Just look at it this way. You can use your body structure. Now, the northern part will represent the head, the western side will be your left hand, while the eastern side will be your right hand, then the south will be your legs. So you can see that it's quite easy. So another thing is that you need to take note of where the description starts from. Now in this example, the description is starting from the south entrance. So that means this is often the major entrance, and this is where the description is starting. So now this is where we start listening and we start following the description. So in the audio, the narrator will tell you to your left or to your right. So based on that, you get to know what you're supposed to fill in for option B, what you're supposed to fill in for option C, and what you're supposed to write in option A. All of that are contained in the audio. So the thing to do under map labeling is to identify the starting point. So once you identify the starting point, then you are good to go. I hope it's clear. So now let's move on to the next one. The next question. Now the next question will be what we call sentence completion. Now this is common under part 3, is common under part 4, whereby you have some words being extracted or being removed from the sentence, and you are to complete that sentence by filling in those words. So we can say the sentence completion is more or less filling the gap. We can say that, or it's safe to say that. So most of the time, this filling the gap could also be like a form of short answer. We can also say that as well. Now, when we are doing all of this, we need to be careful, because we need to pay attention and listen carefully. Whatever is being mentioned in the audio is what we are to fill in. For example, we have this year group project involves designing a dash. Now the answer is TV adverts. That is what was mentioned. If somebody has written TV adverts or TV advertisements, that might be marked wrong, because what was mentioned is TV adverts. So we need to pay attention. Now look at the second question. The second question says, Mina missed the group project last year because of dash. Now the answer is computer problems. Computer problems. Now if the candidate had written computer problem, omitting the S is going to be marked wrong. So when you are answering anything related to sentence completion, you need to pay attention and see that you capture what was said in the audio. Remember, the audio is only played once. There is no repetition. I did not remember to mention that. That's why I'm mentioning it now. The audio is played just once, no repetition. So you need to pay good attention. Okay, now we have it, short answer question. Yeah, we are often given instructions to follow, and the instruction could tell you, like now we have this instruction. The instruction says use no more than 3 words and or a number. It's very important that you pay attention to that instruction. If your answer is more than 3 words, it's going to be marked wrong. So you need to pay attention. When the instruction says not more than 3 words, you are expected to write at most 3 words. Sometimes the answer could be 1 word, could be 2. But your answer must not go beyond the 3 words that was specified in the instruction. Sometimes the instruction could say 1 word. Don't go beyond that. Sometimes the instruction will say 2 words. Don't go beyond those 2 words. So you need to pay careful attention to the instruction. I hope it's clear. So now let's look at this example. Now the example says, what does the man want to do on holidays? What does the man want to do on holiday? Now the answer is see wild animals. Now see is 1 word, wild is the second word, animals is the third word. Remember the instruction says not more than 3 words. So see wild animals. See wild animals. 3 words. Now the next question says, what kind of accommodation would he prefer? Self-catering. That's 1 word. Even though it's hyphenated. Because it is hyphenated, it's counted as 1 word. So self-catering, that's the kind of accommodation we prefer. Here's the transcript. Let's go through this transcript to make it clearer. So we have the woman that is helping the man book the accommodation. So here is what she's saying. Okay, I can certainly see some suggestions for you about your trip to South Africa. But first, I need to know what kind of thing you enjoy doing on holiday. Now the man's response, well, normally my wife and I just like to relax on holiday, sunbathe, read, that sort of thing. But this is going to be a special holiday. We want to see as much as possible, especially some wild animals. So the man wants to see wild animals. Can you see where the answer is being created? See the wild animals. Now, the next one. Well, there are lots of opportunities to do that there. So next, can you give me an idea about the sort of accommodation you did like while you were over there. Luxury hotel, guest house, self-catering. And the man went for, yes, that's one. We do like to cook for ourselves. So that means his answer is going to be self-catering. So you can see that is the answer, self-catering. Though the man did not mention it directly, but when the woman mentioned it, she said self-catering, and the woman said, yes, that's one. And he further clarified by saying, we love to cook for ourselves. So while you are listening, you need to pay attention to all of this, because that would help you answer clearly. So that will be all. We have looked at the listening test, and we have seen the different question type under the listening test. Okay, I'm aware that you would have some questions, so I would like you to drop that in the comment section. Drop your question in the comment section, and we will definitely answer your question. So see you in the next class.